Okay, next up we have someone who has been part of CCC events for years now. Please welcome Katzazi, a true angel, with a truly adventurous story.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Katzazi. My real name is Eva Stöwe. I do stuff at work, and yes, I have a little bit of background at law, very little one, and I'm an IT consultant, so computer science background as well. My law degree, it's not a degree, background doesn't really qualify me to speak about American license details, but yeah, so I will rely on the words of others for this. But this is not this important. It's more important that I'm a person and I do other stuff. I have hobbies, and one of the hobbies is playing games. And that's why I want to tell a story today. A real story, a story about good ideas and bad intentions, about growth and greed and greatness. So in short, about humans and open source. But it will be also including wizards and dragons and an orc. But most importantly, players. This story begins with two players. Gary Gygax, a lot of you, if you have some idea about D&D, probably know him. And Dave Arnson. Those two were playing war games. Gygax also did something with GenCon, or he was the organizer. And Dave Arnson had some ideas how to actually include some more story things, so like people and everything, that wasn't there before. And Gary found this very interesting, and they joined together. And they, with somebody else, founded TSR, a company, and shortly afterwards they brought out the first version of Dungeons and Dragons, the best known pen and paper system that we have, and the first one actually, yeah. Oops. This evolved. There was a basic set, which were for beginners more or less, and another set, advanced D&D. It was more meant for people who want to dive deeper and everything. And there were a second edition of this. So we are now at 1989, a little bit later. And also there were some updates for the basic set. But in 1997, all of this had a long story with ups and downs for TSR. The original players already had left the company, and others were taking over, and there were good times and bad times, and at some time they realized they needed another person to help them, some other players to help them. And at the GenCon, they found a company that was doing Magic the Gathering, and somewhat later, they also did something with Pokemon trading games. This was Wizards of the Coast. And they, were bought more or less by Wizards of the Coast. So TSR now is Wizards of the Coast. And they had issues with their second edition. It was not really balanced anymore because of a lot of new classes and additions and everything, and that was the task that they more or less gave Wizards of the Coast, or that picked up Wizards of the Coast to work on another edition, on a new edition. But a year later, or 2 years later, they were bought by Hasbro, a big company that a lot of people probably know from other areas, but not so much about pen and paper. Even 1 year later, after 3 years of development and quite some testing and trying out and everything, they brought out the third edition of D&D, which now unified the basic and the advanced traits. So both were combined together. There were 3 rule books, as before in the advanced track, the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. And the rules were combined, and mostly the advanced track more or less was kept, but also ideas from the basics. So a lot was mixed and redone, and as I said, it was 3 years of development. This version was played very well by the players. They liked it, and it was picked up. But around of the 2000s, there was some other stuff going on. The open game movement was starting or picking up. We had the open source movement in the software area, and a lot of players were also somehow related to IT. And the idea of open licenses was also considered in this area. So there was actually a movement, but anything before mostly were about single games and focused on the single product with no real effects for others. And then in the 2000s, Ryan Dancy, who was the vice president for D&D at BalCCC, Wizards of the Coast, he said he was not a player, he was just a manager, and he said there's a business case for open source in gaming, and if BalCCC, so Wizards of the Coast, can establish clear policies about how others may use our material and products, we can draw others to our products, and we can invite others to do something comparable and to join into our world, more or less. And by this, people can just work together, and we can get more content creation created for our own products if people just come to us, more or less, because we invite them with an open license. And that is what they approached. They also did the D20 system. So before, a lot of things were rolled with different kinds of dices, and the D20 is the big 20-sided dice, and this was then the main dice that was rolled for D&D and also other games. That was the idea, to just use this die and unify everything around this die. And they actually had a logo with this. I didn't put it here, and they invited others to use the logo and to share in, and with the logos, there was a license again to use it, and to also use the same kind of D20 rolls. And the idea, the design goal, was that people only have to learn one system to play more or less all of the games. So one system to bind or catch everybody. And this idea worked relatively well, not the licensing, but a lot of other systems were then based on the D20. And yeah, that was quite some idea, and they actually used the open source for this to get people into their network. They also then wrote an actual open game license, and they saw or considered two kinds of content. In this field, one is the open game content, how they called it, which was about the game mechanics, like the rule sets, how stuff interacts, processes to do something, and stuff like this, and not the real product identity, just the how does it work. And the other one was what they called the product identity, which was names, logos, characters, stories, adventures, trademarks, stuff like this. So anything more on the creative side or evolving something there. This is a mechanics, and that's what you have as content within. And they actually did the OGL, the Open Game License, was about the first part, the mechanics. And this one was a perpetual, worldwide, royalty-free, non-exclusive license that allowed to use the open game content. So, which is quite some worth. So everybody could just, if they bought the stuff once, they could use the stuff and put on stuff and create their own things based on the open game content. The other one was the system reference document, which was actually the core things in the worlds and names and stuff like this. And this was not actually under this kind, this is broadly given. But nonetheless, the system is the most important thing for getting others to play with you. And parts of the SRD were also somewhat open, but the most important thing was the OGL, which actually was the game as such, or considered to be the game as such. And if we look at the date, this is in the year 2000. it took 2 more years for the Creative Commons to appear. So we are speaking about a time where we didn't have Creative Commons, the license. And so we are very early for licenses, and so even if we might criticize or something with the OGL, it's actually some very early approach of a company to do something like this, and we probably don't get, or they're probably not as well thought out, or they don't have this experience that we now have as Creative Commons. So while I will criticize some stuff, I think it's even then a good thing that they did it as early. So that they tried it out. And tried to make it a business as well. So it was a business thing, and they tried to how to do open licenses with the business. Then some years later, there was a big question: can the OGL be terminated? It wasn't really clear based on the wording. There was something in section 9 that whatever was published under the OGL can always be used. And so the answer of WotC was, we could change something under the OGL and move it away, but if the community doesn't want it, the community would just ignore it. That was actually the official answer from WotC about if we can terminate it. So even if we could, in theory, it would not work if the community isn't with us. Then I'm coming to something different a little bit. It's not really about license, but in 2002 there was a carve out from within WotC. So far we had the 2 magazines, Dragon and Dungeon, and they were published by WotC. But WotC then thought, we have the 2000s and everything is online now, and online is important. We have the internet. We don't need prints anymore. We don't need these magazines anymore, or not as much. We don't want to do them by ourselves. So they took the people who were doing it, and those people created Paizo, another company, and they now published Dungeon and Dragon. And they also did these magazines had a lot of material about adventures and adventure hooks and stuff like this, and they were very well known in the community for good stuff. And it was written always by the now Paizo crew. A year later, only 3 years after the 3rd edition, we had another edition, the 3.5 edition of D&D. Again with 3 books, and it had relatively small rule adjustments, but they streamlined everything and especially reworked the Dungeon Master's Guide because before everything was spread around, and now it was a very good source book and very much helped the DMs to do their games more properly and prepare better. And this version actually was quite well received by the community because there were a lot of improvements, and they listened a lot to player feedback in advance. So what people didn't like was somewhat removed or updated, and a little bit more new stuff was added. And it was a good thing, and people bought it even if it was only just a few years after the new 3 edition, which was the one that combined everything. And 2007, WotC then decides, all these magazines, we don't need it anymore, so they actually fire Paizo, and they terminate the license for Paizo. So for Dragon and Dungeon, so those magazines are then more or less cancelled, no need for magazines anymore. And this was the business of Paizo, and Paizo decides to continue what they were doing best, doing adventures, and they started the Pathfinder Adventure Path. They are doing adventures now with what they did before, just saying. A year later, D&D got a 4th edition, which was more or less another reaction to what is going on in the world. We had now World of Warcraft going on, and people liked it, and it was a big money source. And yes, WotC thought, well, it would be cool if we could something like this with our players. Well, they also do something comparable, and actually World of Warcraft was somewhat picking up topics from D&D anyway. So they tried to more move D&D to what people did online with those MMORPGs. And they did a lot of balancing, changed a lot of things. Their focus was on combat, on not a lot of other stuff, so not about all these role-playing elements. And they actually went up to level 30 instead of the level 20 before. And so they tried to more or less go a little bit more like MMORPGs, which is not what people play at the table. And yes, they also changed something else. They went to a new kind of license. They didn't put it under the OGL, but a new license, the game system license, which also was royalty free, but it was much narrower, and it didn't really include the rules anymore, but only references to them. And it was a little bit unclear what people could do with it. And the most important part, it was incompatible with the OGL. And yeah, there was a lot of confusion about this. The question was, if we go to the DSL, are we forced to discard the OGL for our own products that we have before, or how it is combined? And another point was that WotC had the right to update the GSL at any time, so that was another element of it. And the licensees, so whoever took up the license, would have to pay legal costs for WotC if there would be legal issue. So it was binding people very much down if they would go for content, for their own content under the GSL. So it was very risky to do something like this, and people were scared. So what did Paizo do? Yes, they made their own system. They created Pathfinder, which was very much like D&D 3.5, the old one, and it was mostly considered to be D&D 3.75, and they discussed if they would go for the 4th edition or like this for the 3.5, and the employees discussed it. They were unsure about the GSL, and at some point they said, we are going all in, and we do this under OGL by ourselves, and we try how far we can go with this approach for open content. And they actually do this by, there's a website called Archives of Nethys. Nethys is a god of magic in their world, and yes, there you can find all the rules in the game. Everything is open. So yes, they sell books, but if you don't want to have the book, or you don't have it with you, or whatever, you just go to this website, which isn't done by Paizo, but they know that it's happening, and they like it, and you can look up whatever you are missing, which is cool. So what did the players do? Well, yes, they now in 2011, 2012, 2 quarters of 2013, and a quarter in 2014, Pathfinder, instead of D&D, was now the top-selling RPG in, I don't know, America or everywhere. But so the players didn't really move to D&D 4, but a lot of them stayed with the old system, but with Paizo's Pathfinder. Yes, and then what was the assessment of the GSL? It was not really well accepted in the community. And what was the assessment? Oh, I thought I had something more. And how was the assessment for D&D 4th edition? Well, most of the players didn't like it. It was very tactical, and a lot of old concepts were not there. There were new concepts, and this divided the community apparently, because most of them went for Paizo's game, and it was also not really accepted by other publishers because, well, they didn't really know what to do with the GSL license. So it wasn't really successful, and it actually has a very bad reputation even now. There are some people now starting to play it again, but as such it's just a bad word to speak about it, and Paizo then actually stopped to speak about it. Okay, now it's the slide that I wanted to do before, sorry. Because regarding the GSL, there was Andy Collins speaking about it, and he was design and development manager for D&D. And he said that he remembers that he didn't want to have, he wanted to have it under an open license like OGL, but because he saw the risk that people would not join in, that the community would have been left behind, as it actually later happens. And in hindsight, he said it would have been better to just kill the OGL and not create something like a Frankenstein's monster like they did with the GSL, which was kind of open but not open, and nobody really knew what to do about it. So actually D&D was very disappointed with this license as well. And because of this, 2014 they did another edition because they wanted the players back from Paizo, and it was the 5th edition, and they actually worked on this for 3 years, starting 2012. They did a lot of play tests, they really listened to the community, they did a lot of simplifications and went back to 3 main rule books, and they also returned back to the OGL. So back to our real open license. And the players, yes, they liked it. D&D 5e is a bestseller, and a lot of new open content was created around D&D 5th edition. There's a lot of content creators doing stuff about it, not just Critical Role. There are games, editions, variations, tools like virtual tabletops, a lot of memes, a lot of art, very big scenery around D&D, mostly 5e, and a lot of stuff. It's just exploding. Yeah, what did Paizo do? Well, their game didn't really work anymore as good. There were people playing it. Actually, people still play their game, and they actually did a lot of good stuff, good games like Kingmaker and computer games and stuff like this. But at some point, they decided to make a 2nd edition as well. So another edition, and it had new rules, new wordings, very strong balancing, very much unification of concepts into traits and level, and everything is unified. And it's not really compatible with D&D 3.5 or Pathfinder 1 anymore. And so the dependency to D&D is quite reduced, so we don't have that much relation to D&D anymore, and it's placed under the OGL. I played a round of Pathfinder 2 yesterday. Some people consider it very crunchy, some consider it very round. There's some like it, some don't, but it's in their own thing now. We have a real fork away from the original D&D. And what it does is it helps the Game Master a lot by giving a lot of help with this full set of rules, this combination. Some people say this limits what the GM or the players can do because everything is put into boxes and rules. But the first rule in Pathfinder is also the rule of cool. So if something is cool and if you want to have it happen, you can just make it happen regardless of what other rules say, like in D&D. So it's not really limiting if you don't want to have it limiting. Yeah, so September 2021, there's something new going around because the 50th anniversary of D&D is approaching for 2024. And WotC announces the One D&D. And the community isn't really sure about what it is because WotC also says 5e is the best system we ever have. So it should be a new improvement to this best system, but it should be the same, and the new system should be based on the old system. It should be an update, but it should be the same system or whatever. People are not really sure, but there start to come up rumors that the OGL should be terminated. And people don't like these rumors. So before we speak about it a little bit more, people really want to have this OGL going on apparently. So we should have a little look about what the OGL, how others think the OGL is, or to assess it a little bit. Not a lot of things that I say about it, but I want to shout out for Kit Walsh from the EFF, who said something about the OGL, because he considered that most of the stuff that RPGs do can be categorized in those two groups. Some are copyrightable and some are not copyrightable. And creative descriptions and everything like these, which wasn't really under the OGL, are copyrightable, but game mechanics usually, in most cases, probably are not copyrightable. So most of the stuff that we actually have under the OGL probably isn't really copyrightable, but if you agree to the license, you agree to the license. The license is very narrow compared to some other newer licenses, and most of the stuff is not usually copyrighted. But you get something if you accept the license. That is very, very useful to have, which is you gain legal certainty. Legal certainty about what's the things you can do and what's the agrees that you can do the stuff. And then because of this, you can then publish your own stuff, you can build on it, you can evolve your own stuff, and you know that you will be able to sell it or to give it to people. That WotC will not stop you from doing this as long as you stick to the license. And this is actually what allowed all this growth around D&D. And if the OGL is terminated and it's not this open license anymore, people don't really know anymore what they can do and what they can't. So this thing, the legal certainty, is the stability thing. And talking about terminating can be very damaging. Well, in December 2022, there was also a fireside chat from I think it was Hasbro. And Hasbro, we have a short look at Hasbro, what the importance about WotC, the Wizards of the Coast. And Hasbro has 4 departments, and one of them more or less is Wizards and Digital, which is mostly Wizards of the Coast. And actually, this is a very, very big part of what money Hasbro makes. It's $1.2 billion in 2022 and about 2021. And also I have another reference in the third quarter of 2023. It was Hasbro lost 10%, but WotC was giving and growing 40%. So in this time. So it's a very, very big part of Hasbro, very important money thing. It's not just gaming, it's a big thing. Hasbro is one of the big companies we have. And during this fireside chat, they said D&D is underperforming regarding monetization because mostly Dungeon Masters buy their products and we have about 4 times more players. And there are also other games, all these mobile games with all these microtransactions, and they are creating a lot more money. We should get more microtransactions going on with D&D, and and actually they did something like this. And we also could monetize, get more money out of virtual platforms, online thingies, because they are again looking at online games and mobile games. And they want to do some 3D animation and everything like this. And they also want to attract a new gamer basis, new players, by their new film, the D&D film, the Baldur's Gate, and by a little bit more other stuff like 3D animation thingies with virtual platforms. So more or less computer games, like and not so much the pen and paper in-person experience they were speaking about. So they were saying, well, our current players are not really giving us enough money, and we want to have other gamers, so they probably give us more money or something like this. Okay, what do the players think about this? Well, they don't really like this, and they listen. This is a community who wants to get everything that they can about D&D, and yeah, so they say, well, this is bullshit, and or well, it's not something that we want to have, and it doesn't really make sense that everybody buys the books if it's just the secrets that we want to play. Yeah, so there's also an OGL leak that some of the stuff would be kept, that there would be an update to the OGL, and big publishers would have to pay money and others have to report their earnings, and that everybody would have to give up their rights to sue BalCCC and stuff like this. This leak was never really confirmed, but it was not really completely addressed on the other hand as well. So we don't really know if this was the plan. But Paizo reacted to this and others. They announced a remaster project to do something with their own stuff because they feared that something with the OGL might happen now. And they updated their current system. And they said, we want to do a new open license. And they asked others to join into the license initiative. And they said a dozen people or projects also were in there. And for example, these big players were in there already. And they said there will be an ORC coming, because the new license should be called Open RPG Creative License. It would be open, perpetual, irrevocable, and system agnostic. So whatever system you have, you can put it under this license. It would not be controlled by Paizo, but by open law firm, Azora Law, and it's non-profit and has a history with open source. And no RPG company should be in control of this, and actually we want to put it under Creative Commons eventually. Yes, so more or less at the same time, WotC announced the OGL 1.2. Yeah, and they more or less repeat what they did before. They said, well, okay, some stuff we can put under Creative Commons, but everything else would be, there would be a new license, stuff like this. There wouldn't be any payments and stuff like this, but yeah, some of the rumors were still there. And everything that would be under the OGL would also be the core, only be the core pen and paper experience, and everything else there probably would be a VTT license or something. It was very confusing. Yeah, and the players, what did they do? They boycotted everything there was from WotC, Hasbro and stuff like this. And they did a petition for an open D&D because they really wanted to be sure to have access to the rules and everything, and to everything. And within days, they got 66,000 signatures. And the Pathfinder products for 8 months also sold out within days. So they went back to Paizo. And yeah, what did Paizo do? They actually got the org running within a short time. There were already 2,500 others joining into their initiative. And yeah, this then caused WotC to apologize, yay, and to start a survey around the OGL. It was meant to be for a month or something, but only very few, about a week later, they published the survey, and the survey said they had 15,000 submissions, and over 80% more or less in every category said, no, we don't want this, or no new stuff, we don't want this, we want Creative Commons, please go for Creative Commons, and drop everything else what you're just trying to do. Drop to screw everybody up. And yeah, that's what WotC did. Oops, sorry, a German word. And they announced that they will put everything under Creative Commons now, starting now, and they stop anything about revoking the OGL. This was done within a week of starting their survey. Yes, and actually Paizo, on the other hand, shortly afterwards actually got the org running. We now have an org license, which is open and free, and they are joining it, so their new system is under this new license, and other big players also join in and have their stuff, like Cobalt Press with their own new system, which is more or less a D&D 5e. Yeah, so Pathfinder is get a new kind of rules which actually improves a lot. They do a lot of play tests and everything. The addition that they do is actually worth to play, and it's backward compatible completely with the one before, but it's now under the ORC and not anymore under the OGL. And you can play one or the other, you just can switch around with those, but the new stuff has new names and is definitely not OGL anymore. So actually OGL, if you have an OGL product, it says this product is original game content and it's not based on any other game license. They had to remove some stuff like holy and unholy, or the alignments, the alignments and the 8 spell schools and stuff like this, which was too much D&D, but a lot of other stuff just remained and was improved. But you don't need to buy this other stuff, but remember, we have these archives of Nessus, and everything now is under archives of Nessus, and you just can switch around, new version, old version, and you see everything there again. So you don't need to buy, but you can if you want. Yeah, D&D now also did something. They actually did their one D&D, which now is D&D 5 edition 2024, very catching name, and their new books with not really much changes. And it's not really a half version. They said it wouldn't be a new version, but it is a new version, or it's not a new version. It probably was just trying to get a new version to get a new license going on. Well, some improvements are probably there, but a lot of players are not really sure if this is worth to do or not. Yes, my conclusion about all of this is that open source is really important for a business. They tried to do other stuff and it didn't work out. Only when they did, when it was about open source, they really could catch the community. And it's also very essential to understand your community, because some community listen. And if they get loud, they really can change things. They really can screw you up if you are trying to screw up your community. And if the community is loud, yeah, you can actually deal with Hasbro, stuff like this. Well, and it's probably best for everybody. Maybe not really Hasbro. They fired a lot of people back then, but now they are on a recovery. They're doing quite well at the moment. Yeah, so I don't think that we have a lot of time to discuss stuff, but that's it from my side.
So what do people need to roll for if they want to ask you for questions later?
Yeah, so I will be outside, and I think I can also anticipate one of the questions that a lot of people have about Critical Role, Daggerheart, and their Force campaign.
Thank you, Katzazi.